So in 2025, something just broke. Something snapped in the market for one of the world's most essential metals. I'm talking about silver. In just rally, it absolutely exploded. We're going to dive into the perfect storm of physical, financial, and geopolitical forces that all collided to create this crisis. And believe me, it's a crisis unlike anything we have seen before. Just to put this into perspective for you, silver surged a staggering 138% year over year. It became the best performing major asset of 2025. And I mean, it just blew everything else out of the water. A move this huge, this violent, well, it demands an explanation. And that really gets us to the core question, right? What's the deal here? Are we just watching another speculative frenzy? You know, the kind of short lived bubble we have seen in the past? Or is something much deeper going on? Are the actual gears of global market for this critical metal grinding to a halt right in front of us? Well, if you ask market experts like Vince Lancy, the answer is hard no. This isn't a bubble. He says it's a manifestation of deglobalization. And what that means is the price you see on the screen is not just a number anymore. It's a fever chart for a world that's breaking apart, where supply chains are fracturing and nations are starting to hoard what's theirs. Okay, so let's dig into the first of our three pillars, the physical squeeze. This is where the story really begins. We're not talking about paper contracts or financial wizardry yet. We're talking about the simple, brutal reality of digging metal out of the ground. So, this right here, this is silver's Achilles heel. See, over 70% of all the silver we get isn't mined on purpose. It's just a byproduct that comes out of the ground when you're really mining for copper or lead or zinc. So, what does that mean? It means you can't flip a switch and get more silver when the demand spikes. Its supply is what economists call inelastic. It just can't respond quickly. And then you've got the other side of the coin. While that supply is basically stuck in slow motion, the demand is getting hit with this triple whammy of industrial revolutions, all happening at exactly the same time. The solar boom, the EV transition, and the insane build out of AI data centers, they're all incredibly silver hungry and the appetite is growing exponentially. Right. And this isn't something that just happened overnight. This has been building for years. For 5 straight years, the world has used way more silver than it's able to mine. And that has drained the global stockpiles, the silver we had saved up by a mind boggling 820 million ounces. We've basically raiding the world's piggy bank and now it's almost empty. And this table just lays it out perfectly. It's a total mismatch. You see, the demand for something like AI servers can literally explode in just a few months. But finding and building a new silver mine to meet the demand, you're talking 5 to 10 years, best case scenario. So the demand is moving at the speed of technology, while the supply is stuck moving at the speed of geology. It just can't keep up. Alright, so that insane physical squeeze, it naturally bleeds over into our second pillar, the financial fracture. This is what happens when the world of paper, of contracts, and promises of silver slams headfirst into the world of industry, where people need the real physical stuff in their hands. So now we are in this bizarre situation where silver literally has two different prices depending on where you are in the world. Over in the East, the markets like Shanghai, they're paying huge premiums because they want the actual metal right now. But they can't get it from the West, where the big future exchange like the COMEX is setting a lower paper price. And why is that? It's because the physical metal needed to make good on all those paper promises is disappearing. And this leads to this really wonky sounding but super important market signal called backwardation. You gotta understand, this is a massive distress flare. All it means is that the big industrial users are so desperate for physical metal today that they will pay more for it right now than for a contract that promises to deliver to them in the future. It's basically the market's fire alarm and it's screaming for metal now. And here's why that alarm is ringing so loudly. The COMEX, the paper market, it works a bit like a bank on a fractional reserve. But that leverage has gotten completely out of control. For every single ounce of actual physical silver sitting in their vaults ready for delivery, there are roughly 300 paper claims on it. 300. This system works fine until people stop wanting the paper or start demanding the metal. And that's when you get a classic bank run on the exchange. Look, if you think this is all just theory, check out what the big dogs are doing. JP Morgan, a bank that historically was a huge seller of paper silver, has reportedly done a complete 180. Word on the street is they are now holding one of the largest stockpiles of physical silver in the entire world. They're choosing the real metal over their own paper promises. What does that tell you? And that, of course, brings us to the third and final pillar, the geopolitical game. This is where silver stops being just a commodity and becomes a strategic weapon. It's no longer about the industry, it's about national security, it's about technological dominance, it's about power. In early 2026, China, which is a gatekeeper for refining over half the world's pure silver, just completely changed the game. They threw out the old system and moved to this really strict case by case licensing model. Basically, Beijing now has total control over who gets the refined silver and, more importantly, why they get it. And let me tell you, shipping it over to a Western exchange wall to sit there, that is no longer considered a good enough reason. And you better believe the US didn't just sit back and watch, they responded by officially declaring silver a strategic mineral, which is a huge deal. They're now actively working to lock down supply chains in their own neighborhood, mainly in Latin America, where a ton of the world's silver is actually mined. This is a clear geopolitical power move designed to wall off China from these crucial raw materials. And it's not just a US China fight, everyone is getting in on this. You've got India, terrified about energy security, making this massive dash to build out solar farms. The central bank is even letting people use silver as collateral for loans again. And at the same time, you've got central banks in Middle East buying up physical silver as a hard asset, part of a bigger plan to move away from relying on the US dollar. The global scramble for physical metal is on. Okay, so what happens now? What happens when you slam these three massive forces together? The physical deficit, the breaking financial market, and this global geopolitical chess match. Well, the takeaway here is that there's really no easy exit ramp. We have critical, unstoppable industries that need physical silver that just doesn't exist in the quantities they need. We have financial markets that have written checks that their physical inventory just can't cash. And then on top of that, you have global superpowers locking down what little supply is left for themselves. And that leaves us with the final and really the most important question. The paper markets like COMEX can always change the rules to save themselves. They can raise the cost to trade, they can halt trading, or they can force everyone to just settle in cash. But here's the thing, while they play games with the paper, there's only one thing they can't do. They cannot create silver that simply doesn't exist. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.